the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everybody. It's been an interesting journey the last few episodes. I will say that I've been struggling, which I'm sure is not a shock to all of you out there in the listening audience. So I would just like to say I'm recommitting to you guys. I'm going to step up my game. I've been mailing it in. I own it, and I accept it, and I am moving past it. So, this is going to be an awesome, awesome, awesome episode, and as always, I have Bryan with me. Hey, Bryan.
Hi.
And the best co-host, as always, because he steps up when the host starts to fall asleep.
Well, that's what's nice about our dynamic is we've both done podcasts, so it's kind of like, I've heard people when they go on other podcasts as a guest or whatever, and sometimes there's a lull and you'll catch that one of the guests kind of picking things back up because everyone involved kind of, you recognize dead air and you're like, this isn't good, so you try to fill that in, so there's something there, so it's just, plus I'm used to it from Salty Language anyway, since I generally lead the show essentially, so I'm, kind of just used to, I just step right into it without thinking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Tony has been known to start getting the nods during the show.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's why I said I'm used to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, toward the end, almost every show you can hear him. You can just hear him going downhill, and then at the end where I'm like, you got anything else? And he's like, oh I'm spent. So that's why it's important when him and I record. It's important for us to be able to see each other. Yes. Not because of hand signals or other stuff that we might do or whatever, but because of that. So I can see him getting the nods and go, okay, it's time to wrap her up,
Pretty soon he's going to be snoring away.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be the first time someone fell asleep on on Salty Language.
Whiskey nap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no proof of that. Because they happened during a break, so it didn't happen.
It was not recording at the time.
Yeah. Well, it was.
Well, right. Yeah, you guys were on break. So.
Yeah. It was still recording at the time. Like when I snapped out of it, it was still going. I was like, oh, geez. But there was like no sound, so I just ran back real quick to where it just stopped and cut the audio. But yeah, it was, yeah, and that file's been deleted, so there's no proof of it anywhere. I covers my tracks. If Tony falls asleep, I'm leaving it in, but
Of course, well, naturally.
Right.
That's a given.
Right. If I do it, then we'll cut it right out.
Well, that's the awesomeness of being a non-professional podcast.
Yeah.
You know what? You make mistakes, you fix what you can, and you move on.
Yeah.
But one thing that, before we get into the meat of things, how has your week been?
Decent. I was trying to think when we recorded last because it's been over a week, so we're a little late this time. But, it was decent. Essentially, low key. Nothing really happened since the post Thanksgiving was when we recorded last time. So it was like, yeah, nothing's really gone on except, one thing that kind of punched me in the gut a little bit was was Scott Weiland dying over the week.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with him, he was known as the lead singer of Stone Temple Pilots or Velvet Revolver mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me because they were one of those bands that I really identified with, like back in the day. Like they were my, essentially when I first started fighting depression, they were my happy place. Like I'd listen to their music, and even now it's my go-to. Like all day I've been in my head. There's a Scott Weiland track that Corey from the Evil Teddy Bear podcast and now Corecast, he pointed out to me. I didn't know this track existed. It was when Pharrell was working with Scott Weiland on a solo album, and it's the song is called Happy, and it later turned into a song that Nerd released. Pharrell's band, their group, like Nerd, they released the song, and the Scott Weiland one never made the album. And the track has recently surfaced, so I got to hear it, and it's a catchy tune, and it just sticks in your head. So all day that's been going.
Popular Happy one?
No, it's a totally different song, actually, which is really weird because Pharrell actually has 2 songs called Happy, and both did pretty well as far as popularity goes. But anyway, so, I used to get, when I'd get depressed, I would put on Core, Stone Temple Pilots' first album, and I would just listen to it and listen to it and listen to it. I mean, I've owned that CD twice because the first one got so scratched up from play and stuff that I had to go buy a second one, and like I said, it was just so weird, like hearing that, because it was just, it's just part of like teenage me, another singer from that era.
Yeah.
Gone, because Kurt Cobain, Lane Staley of Alice in Chains, now him, and there's a couple more, the guy from Blind Melon, and I can't think of the other one. There's another fairly big name that they're all singers from that era that are all dead. It's just, Weiland was chasing heroin for years and years and years and just could never really get clean. And I read that there was coke on the tour bus that he was found in, and it just... Yeah. It's amazing, I think, to a lot of people he lived to 48 because he was, like...
The demons are chasing.
Yeah, and it's, he's finally at some rest here. It's just, we all chase our demons, and it's amazing how during a time he was chasing his demons, he brought relief to me while I was chasing mine, basically. It's just amazing how one person can do that to another. And I'm not alone. There's been so many people that I've seen posts from that were huge fans of Stone Temple Pilots or whatever, and just like, man, I can't believe in so many people posting this is my favorite song and all this stuff, and I love it because he's easily one of my favorite singers, and regardless of band he was in, I thought he had an incredible voice.
Yeah.
And even at 48, it feels too soon, but it's, for a rock and roll star who did drugs, that's like 2 lifetimes,
Right?
I mean,
true.
When you look at like Joplin and Jimi Hendrix and, at like 27, Kurt Cobain died at 27,
Yeah.
Lane Staley, I forgot how old he was, but he wasn't that old either. It's just, like I said, it really kind of punched me in the stomach a little bit. And it sucked because the day that it happened, I was already in kind of a melancholy mood. And then that happened, and I was like, man, So the way...
It's not breaking my mood up.
The way I dealt with it, honestly, was I sat down at the computer I'm recording on right now, and I just pulled all of Stone Temple Pilot stuff into a playlist, and I have some of his solo stuff, too. So I just pulled all that in there and just started listening to, a bunch of his stuff, and it was just, it was just such a... I don't know, like I said, it's weird, because most of the time celebrities or rock stars or whatever dying, I'm like, well, that sucks, and you move on. And that one just I had a personal tie to it because of that, and really hating the fact that I missed my chance to see him when I bought a ticket. I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember it was like the very first time that I thought I had kidney stones? And I was at home laying in bed because I couldn't get out of bed. And I wasn't able to go to the concert because it was them, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Godsmack, and I didn't get to go to concert. I didn't get to go to the show. So
nice.
Yeah, so that was pretty much my week. I wrote a quick blog about it, if anybody wants to read, I pretty much have just described it. But if you want to go read it, the link's on our page, or if you hit me up on Twitter, it's pinned as my top tweet on Twitter. If you want to, go read it.
That's cool.
Yeah, because I thought that was the best way for me to deal. I was like, I haven't written a blog in a while. This is a great time to write a blog, and it's really short. It's like a paragraph and a half. It's not a lot.
And it's really interesting that people you've never met can really become friends.
Yeah.
And it's so odd.
Yeah.
Because you hear it all the time with podcasting, You listen to somebody and they open themselves up, and you listen to them time and time and time again, and pretty soon they become a friend of sorts.
Yeah.
And same thing with books and authors and musicians. I think anyone that puts any sort of art form out there puts a bit of themselves in that art form, and that's what you connect with. Right,
and when you feel like someone speaks to you, you're going to kind of latch to them as well. And it's why I said from the minute go with them. The first time I heard him, I was at Tony's house, co-host of Salty Language. I was at his house late at night. Headbangers Ball came on, and Ricky Rotman, and I included in my blog. I found a video from that episode, and they played Plush acoustic. It was just Scott Weiland, and I can't remember the guitarist's name. It was just them, and they played that, and I was like, I love this song. I went up the next day, bought the album, and I've played it so many times, because it just spoke to me. I don't know why, but it just spoke to me.
That's all that happens. That's all that needs to happen.
Why I love music so much. There's just,
I mean, and it's so funny because it doesn't have to be something traditional to speak to you, or necessarily even the point of the song. It's just something about it. Because it could be a really sad, depressing song.
Oh, yeah.
But yet make you feel happy.
Yeah.
It's just something you can relate to it that just...
Or it can be a really happy song and make you feel sad, honestly.
Right? Absolutely.
It really could be. Yeah. So I said, I have so many memories over the years kind of tied to them, and that group specifically. And that's why whenever people ask me, it's like that's always the group I go to, because it's just... It's the one I listen to the most. Like I said, it's like, in high school, before I was dating my first girlfriend, her and I wrote notes to each other, like discussing the lyrics of that album, like kind of what we thought they meant to each other, because we both loved it so much. So I bonded with someone else who ended up dating because of Stone Temple Pilots. And, it's why I said it's like there's stuff like that that's tied to. I can remember parts of my life with certain songs from those albums and stuff. It's, I remember buying Tony Tiny Music for one of his birthdays. It's like I said, I just have certain things that
it's just been a part of your life for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. So,
right. Well, kind of as an aside, and I don't know if the speaker picked it up because I do have a pretty sensitive speaker, but that grumbling in the background was Max purring. He's trying to make you feel better, despite the fact that you lost one of your favorite artists.
Right. What a terrible way to make someone feel better. No.
I know, right?
Like, I don't know. Does cat purring work that way? Has there been sciencing done on that? No. I mean, in person it does, but I don't know. Does it work via Skype? Because
I don't know.
It doesn't seem the same without the cat, like, near you. You know what I mean?
Well, it's supposed to be something with the tonal
the frequency, the
frequency and the tone of a purr that's supposed to settle stress and slow your heart rate to a normal beat and stuff like that. Right. So you're right. I don't know if it works via microphone or not.
This kind of makes you wonder, right? Because like on the phone, someone can tell you, "Hey, everything's going to be all right," and all that, and you can buy into it. You don't have to have them in the room. Don't get me wrong; a hug works better than sometimes than a verbal pat on the head. But it's I don't know. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty funny because as you were talking, he crawled on my lap and he's over by the mic and you just hear his purr, 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 purr. So, folks, if you caught on, if you heard that, I do apologize, but he's trying to send good vibes.
Right. You know, the weirdest part of the thing, and I'll be done with this, I swear, after this.
Oh, that's fine.
Was when I read it, there was someone on Instagram that posted, like, a picture of him, and underneath it, you know, it said R.I.P., and I'm like, well, you know, the internet is sometimes with... So I was like, well, you know... And then when I looked and saw it, I was like, holy shit, you know, and it was funny because I went to do something, and I looked in the... I went into the bathroom, and I noticed in the mirror I was wearing my Stone Temple Pilots shirt that day, and I was like, all right, this is kind of weird. So I was telling Tony, like when him and I were recording, you know, I was like, I was wearing my Salty Language podcast shirt, and Tony was like, get that thing off. So now we kind of have a second joke. Is, you know, Tony and I have an inside joke from years ago that Tony killed, what was his name? Jim Varney? Yeah, Ernest. And so it's, you know, so now this may become another joke. I don't know, but apparently if I wear your T-shirt, look out.
Do not walk under ladders or let a black cat.
Right. It was just kind of weird that I happened to have the shirt on that day. It's no big deal. It's just an anecdotal thing. Yeah. So. Yeah. Anyway, so how have you been?
I've been doing good. It's been interesting. I'm in the process of trying to widen my world again. Because I did shrink the world down pretty small for myself. So now I'm trying to widen it back out a bit. And trying to force myself to... And I'm also really struggling to make sure I keep things in perspective as it comes to work. I have a feeling this opportunity is going to be coming to a close in the next couple months, or it's going to come to a head either way. But I'm okay with that. Yeah, you know, and coming to terms with all of that. You know, I'm really in a place that I'm trying to keep my perspective appropriate. Yeah, you know, because there's a million and one wonderful things happening in my life and one not so amazing thing, right? You know, and it's not a comparison, and you know, everybody has their stuff, and right people have it a lot worse than I do, and blah blah blah. So I mean, it's nothing like that. It's just from my perspective, I have a tendency to get very absorbed in wanting to fix everything and make everything perfect. Yeah. And I'm having to find myself being okay with imperfections and being okay with sitting in it for a while. And this is just the way it's going to be for now. Yeah. You know, and taking action on things I can take action on and letting things go that I can't. Yeah. It's really what, like, cognitive behavioral therapy essentially tells you is to hold on to... first of all, you know, figure out what is a fact and hold on and, you know, control what you can control, and things you can't, you have to just let go of them and, you know, just worry about them when you can affect them. And, you know, and it's really difficult because it's, you know, like Heno talked about on Angela's awesome podcast about surrendering. You know, it comes back to it's so hard to surrender. Yes. It's so hard. It's not our nature. It's just not for most people. It's, you want to, you know, especially like with us, you know, we're, you know, like with me, I like everything controlled because it gives me a sense of comfort, even though realistically it doesn't, you know? So. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm very much, I like things very neat and tidy. Yeah. Or controllable. Yes. You know? Yeah, so, even in the chaos, you want that element of control. Like you've discussed before when Dan was like, I'm not telling you what we're doing, and you're like, you have to give me certain elements Yeah, I mean, parameters.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to go crazy, you know? And
Yeah,
so you still, like, you need to know. And I'm the same way. You know, I'll go to restaurants that I haven't been to before. All I ask of people generally is two questions, which is, what's the dress code? Like, kind of, what's the vibe? What's everybody doing? You know, and the other is, you know, make sure there's something mild, because I'm not a huge adventurous eater. I've been trying to, you know, I've been getting better, but I still am very limited. So, you know, just give me a little element of feeling like I have some control in the situation, and I'm good, you know?
Not to mention, you and Tony don't need to be wearing the same dress.
Right. That's true.
That's happened way too many times.
I know. He's got way better legs than I do, too. So.
And I know. It's horrible, isn't it, when someone wears a dress better than you can?
I know, right? Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have the ample cleavage I have, but, you know.
Exactly. At least you can make up for it in that area.
Right.
We tease. But, yeah, it's an interesting place in my life that I'm going through. I mean, it's so funny. I never thought I would be going through this much change in my mid-30s, my mid to late 30s. You know, I feel like this is the types of changes and things that you go through in your early 20s or mid-20s.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going through them kind of later in life. But that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's where I'm at and stuff.
Yeah.
And in other news, I have a new niece, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. Or soon-to-be niece, anyways. It's my fiance's brother and sister.
Oh, I see what you mean by that. Okay. I was like,
yeah.
Like, what do you mean soon-to-be? Like, are we talking a gender reassessment here? This is kind of, okay. I was like, that seems weird for an infant.
Again,
yeah.
Like everything in my life right now, I'm kind of in that little transition.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny because I'm starting to be called Aunt, which is weird. Not by the baby, of course, by her sister, who's a little bit older. But yeah, which is kind of weird being Aunt Jen.
Whereas, like, with me, I've been called Uncle Bryan since I was, like, 3, because I have a nephew that's 3, or not 3, but, you know, 5 or something, because I have a nephew that's 3 years younger than me. So for years he called me Uncle Bryan, and now I've got a bunch of, you know, nieces and nephews that refer to me as that, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the youngest child of 2, and my brother does not have any children right now, so I'm going into a family where I'm going to be an aunt, and they're already starting to call me Aunt Jen, which is just an odd experience, and making me feel old.
Right.
Which, in my head, I'm stuck somewhere in my mid to late 20s.
I think most people are. You know, it's why I've said before when people gripe about music, you know, and I'm like, it's because we're still stuck in our 16 to 20-year-old brain, and that's the music we identify with. And if you look at it, you tend to come back to it. Even if you leave that music for a while, you tend to come right back to it because it's home, you know? And I think it's just that way. I think our mentality, it's almost like, I don't want to say we stopped growing in our 20s, but it kind of in ways kind of feels like it. It's just like, you're like, nope, I'm done.
Yeah, this is where I'm happy.
Yeah. I'm going to get older, but
this
is it.
It's so strange, and I have to keep correcting my brain because I came home and my fiance told me, he's like, well, guess what? I'm like, what? And he's like, I've been asked to be the godfather to the new baby, which in my head I'm like, you know, because it's an amazing honor, you know, and I'm very happy for him, and it's very awesome and very cool. But the first thing that popped in my head was, well, if they die, I'm going to take care of a baby. And the second part is, I don't think I'm old enough to take care of a baby.
It doesn't generally mean that anymore, though. It used to kind of mean that. It's more supposed to be that you'll be the spiritual guidance for the kid.
Yeah, and that's...
Unless they, like, will the kid to you. You know?
And that's kind of, I mean, it's a combination there.
Yeah. But even then, I think you have to obviously be agreeable to it and such, you know?
Oh, yeah. But no, I think the bigger portion was in my head that I keep struggling with the fact that I don't feel like I'm old enough to have a child, but yet...
Yeah, you're old enough to actually have an 18-year-old.
Oh, yes. I am old enough There is a young man that is an intern at our company
Mm-hmm.
who just turned 20.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and I'm like, I am old enough to be your mother. And he just started laughing, and he's like, you are not. And I'm like, yeah, no. I
Yeah,
really
you
am.
are, though. Yeah.
It's really,
Yeah.
really, and it's not even like a, I have to have you when I'm 12 type thing.
No.
No.
It would have been 16. Yeah.
Yeah, 17.
17. Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
pretty- and that's when he took the moment to point out, he's like, but yet, in this conversation, you are the one with the purple hair.
Like, yeah, and?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Your point?
Like, haven't you heard of a midlife crisis? No.
Has crossed my mind.
I've said it for years. Like, I said it jokingly at one point, a few years ago, that I was like, I feel like where I'm at with my life is the midlife crisis part. And people are like, oh, you're too young for that. And I'm like, I'm not, though. I'm 37 now. If you double that, that puts me at 74. It's like, that's not really that far off of life expectancy. And I live a terrible lifestyle. And I've got a lot of things that probably have shaved a couple years off of there. So, it's like, I'm not that far off, and so, yeah, I was, like I said, I say it jokingly, but in a lot of ways, I kind of mean it now. Like, when I first said it, I was joking. Now I'm like, I kind of do, because, I don't have any direction. Like, I don't know where I'm going to go, even if tomorrow or Wednesday I go to therapy and she's like, you're 100% cured, you don't need this anymore. Clearly you no longer have depression or anxiety. I'd be like, I don't know what the hell to do with myself. Like, no idea.
Right.
So I guess I get a Corvette and an 18-year-old girlfriend. That's all I can think of, but I need money to do both of those, so I'm out of luck.
Oh my gosh, there's a show on Netflix. It's the Unsinkable...
Yeah, Kimmy Schmidt or something like that.
Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah.
Yes. You need to watch it.
Yeah, I have it in my queue. I haven't watched it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really entertaining.
It's funny because it's one of those shows that I've heard either that it's really funny or people don't like it much. And I think it's because it's Tina Fey humor and,
Well, and she's very naive.
Right.
And very not simple as in not intelligent. She's very simple in the way she looks at things.
Yeah. The way that, like, if this were 20 years ago, if someone from the country would be portrayed that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very simplistic in her kind of like more of a black and white type of a thing.
Yeah.
And, so she's kind of struggles with modern New York.
Right. Because she was in a bunker for like 10 years or something, wasn't it?
At least, if not more.
Okay, yeah. I was like...
Yeah,
the premise of the show is really goofy, but, I'm
it's
fine...
Kind of a dark premise.
Oh, I'm totally fine with that. You know me enough.
Right, but it's one of those things that... But it's dealt with very comically. Like, it's... Not, even though it's very dark, it's very funny and it's light.
Well, like I said, it's Tina Fey humor. It's,
yes.
She's dark, but she's, I generally like what she does. So
yeah, it's a very good
now I want to say I'm talking her writing more than or like 30 Rock kind of thing. I'm not necessarily defending the movies she's made because I haven't seen probably any of them. But yeah.
And the latest one that she's teaming up with Amy
Poehler, yeah.
Amy Poehler. I love those two together.
Yeah.
But then some of the roles that they put them in, it's like it's almost like their talent is better than the the writing.
I haven't looked to see. I don't know if either of them or if the two of them wrote or had anything to do with that, or if they're just in the movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So.
Because it very easily could be that to where they're just like, oh, it'd be perfect for these roles, these two, and.
Yeah, just stuck them in.
Like you said, the writing doesn't hold up, maybe.
Yeah. But so we've kind of been talking about being grateful and all that good stuff. But with our grateful list from last week and things. But another thing that really came to mind, and we were talking about recently, is being present. And I think this is something that I've struggled with quite frequently. And it's tough because showing up and showing up for a party are two different things.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's the same words, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Being there and being there and being present are certainly two different things. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, and being present is so important. And we, as a society, because we're rushing around and doing so many things, that we miss so much because we're not present for everything that we're doing.
Oh, well, yeah, and the perfect example of this that everyone can identify with is how many times have you been talking to someone or they've been talking to you, and one or the other of you has your face buried in your phone. And then you're like, huh? You know, you look up and you're like, what'd you say? You know, or, you know, some people do that with TV, too. They'll be watching a show and they kind of space out, I guess, whatever you want to refer to it as. You know, they're so focused on the show that everything else becomes, you know, they clear the mechanism.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's that, you know, like you're not even listening to me. Like, yeah, I am. Like, no, you're not.
What did I just
say? You're like, I bet you could tell me how many likes that selfie you're staring at has. Yeah.
Or I think another really common one is how many people have driven home from work but don't remember how you drove home from work?
Yeah.
That whole autopilot, how dangerous is that?
Yeah. Or, you know, yeah, because sometimes, like, in this is, we're not talking about, like, being drunk or tired to the point of not being present. It's more, I mean, it could be the tired, I guess, but it's more about just, it's like for people with depression, a lot of times you get into, like, disassociation and stuff where you don't feel connected to the real world anymore, kind of a thing. Like, you know, you feel like you're daydreaming all the time or at various times, and that's kind of how I experience it more. But I know that's not entirely what we're talking about. We're kind of generalizing the whole mailing it in or not being present. Mm-hmm. You know, how many times you sitting in a meeting and you're just daydreaming, you know? Like, it's just
right,
not paying attention to what's being said or just, you know, whatever.
Or even more important, not listening to, I think we do it a lot with kids.
Yeah.
We're not really present for kids.
Yeah.
You don't really, you like, oh yeah, that's nice, and you kind of just blow them off. Mm-hmm. But really, are you spending time with them?
Yeah. You
may be in the same room, but are you really present? Are you really actively involved, actively engaged?
Yeah, a lot of people do that with others. Like, if once you determine in your head that person has no valid opinion, essentially, or what they're talking about is whatever, like boring, invalid, you check out, you know? Like, how many times you've been talking to somebody and they're telling you a long, boring story and you're just like, you know, you're anywhere else, you know, like thinking about a grocery list or, you know, things you got to do later or things you could be doing instead or, you know, that kind of stuff. It's easy to do, and it's very common. It's more common in people with anxiety and depression, and I would assume that would lump bipolar in because it's it's in the like the depression stuff you share. So it becomes more common in people like that. So and for like me, it's really difficult, like, to deal with at times. Like, I don't want to be that way a lot of times. Sometimes I can't help it. Mm-hmm. And I just am, like, I've made comments before that I feel like I'm a shadow. You know, like, I feel like I'm ghosting, you know, someone. Like, I don't feel like I'm experiencing it. Like, you're just drifting through things. Like, you know, it doesn't feel like I'm part of whatever's going on. In fact, I think I've mentioned it within the last few weeks.
Yes,
on this show. Yeah, remember when I said I went out with friends for a party, like a birthday celebration? I felt like I just wasn't there the whole night, even though I was, and I was partaking in it. I never connected. I never felt connected on the night. So.
Yeah. With me, a lot of it comes to, I'm not sure how I'm going to respond, so I get very very wrapped up in my own head. And when I'm talking with someone, I'm trying to anticipate what they're going to say.
Yes.
So that I can anticipate the response to it.
Well, that actually, what you're saying there, if you tweak it ever so slightly, is I can't remember if it was that thing I heard with Aziz Ansari, or if it was someone else talking about that said that the way conversations work now, it's not you listening to another person, it's you waiting for a chance to progress your point.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like
exactly.
waiting for them to shut up so you can just keep pushing.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
It's
not
like
quite what you're
Bryan.
saying. That's why I said if you tweak it ever slightly, and there is a lot of that. If you listen to a lot of people, like pay attention to conversations, there's a lot of times where two people are talking, but neither is listening to each other. Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, my kid's doing this. Oh, my kid's doing this. And then it becomes a my kid, neither one's paying any attention.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yep, no, you're 100% right. And, yeah, we don't listen. I think that's part of being present and being in the moment is actively listening, is actively taking part in the conversation, in the activities going on around you, being aware and paying attention to everything around you.
Yeah.
And knowing all those different things. Because you don't know what you can be missing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're so fixated at the path in front of you and the direction you're going, and I am, you know, forward, you're missing the moment, you're missing everything around you. Yeah. You have no idea if maybe something more interesting is happening.
Oh, yeah,
that
sure.
could completely change your path. Mm-hmm. You know, and same thing if you're thinking about the past, you know, constantly thinking about, oh, I should have done this, I should have done this, Again, missing everything happening on right now, missing everything that's going on in front of you, you know, so you can be preemptive on stuff.
Well, with, like, conversations, you have to be careful, too, that you're not just making it about you. Like, like I pointed out, you know, I had that, you know, anxiety attack. Mm-hmm. And when I told some people, their first response was telling me how they go through stuff, and I'm like, that's not what I need right now. What I need is, again, I think I've cited it before, that Everybody Hates Chris episode. The wife comes home from work, the husband sits down trying to be a good husband, and she's complaining, and he keeps off, well, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, and he isn't getting that all she wants is just a sounding board. She just wants to vent, and then she's done. Like, she doesn't need the suggestions and stuff. Like, you're not asking for advice. It's like, I just need to get this out of me kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so many people will turn stuff, like, again, especially with mental illness. You know, like, if, you know, hey, how you doing today? Yeah, not good. I had a hard time getting, oh, man, I know. It was tough to get out of bed this morning. Oh, geez, I hit the snooze button, and it's like, no, I mean, like, I laid and stared at my clock for 3 hours and didn't get out of bed. Like, I'm not talking, you know what I mean? And then it becomes a contest, and that's not good for you. It's not good for the other person. And overall, you've had no conversation. Mm-hmm. You've actually regressed, because at the end of it, the person who was looking for, like, help or whatever is going to go, I'm not going to bother telling them anymore. And the other person is going to go, God, all they do is talk about themselves. You know, because you're not listening to each other. And, yeah, anyway, sorry, I keep interrupting you and making it about me. So
That's perfectly fine. That's what this podcast is about.
Me making things about me? Nice.
Us interrupting each other to make interesting points. How about that?
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, well, here's an article that Bryan found. And from Psychology Today, it's 5 steps for being present. Be here right now, now. So, I'm going to kind of skip through some of it, but I think it's very interesting how they begin. And I need explanation, so hopefully, Bryan, you can help me with this.
Okay, and also, just as always, the link to this will be in the show notes if you want it.
Awesome. So, the article starts, the other night I was discussing the how-to of being present with a friend of mine. I fell back on the old Zen standby, chop wood, carry water. Her 13-year-old daughter, who was sitting with us, chimed in with the incisive understanding of delicate concepts that belongs only to a child. So, Don't chop water when you should be carrying wood? Exactly right. I don't understand that. Do you understand what they're trying to say there?
I don't, but I think that's the thing, is that the kid just messes it up. It's supposed to be, it's more of like, don't carry water when you should be chopping wood or whatever. It's supposed to be more about like letting things go and, carry your burdens, but don't carry others' burdens. And I don't know exactly, but
okay.
I'm not exactly sure. I think it's more of just like sometimes when kids mess things up, you're kind of like, exactly,
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So maybe it's supposed to be odd and can't make sense.
I guess, yeah.
Alright, fair enough. Moving on. Anyways. Contrary to popular belief, human beings cannot multitask. What we are capable of is handling a number of serial tasks in rapid succession, or mixing automatic tasks with those that are not so automatic. That's one of the reasons that the NTSB reports... NTSB? Any ideas, Brian?
I'm sorry, I was not...
Yeah, NTSB, National Traffic...
Probably the
Safety
National
Board?
Traffic Safety Board, yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
the
that's what it is.
NTSB reports that texting while driving is the functional equivalent of driving with a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't effectively attend to 2 things at once, even the superficially automatic ones.
Mm-hmm. Really quick, let me interrupt you and go back just a second. The chop wood, carry water is about being in the moment.
Okay.
Because if you're, chop the wood, carry the water, you can't worry about other stuff, like kind of a thing,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do the same things in, what is it? I'm trying to think. I just saw it. I was just reading it. But yeah, it looks like it's more about just being mindful of what you're doing, so, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense then.
I don't know. There's probably more to it, but I'm not going to get too far into it. The page I brought up that describes it a little bit has this huge description. I'm not going.
It's a Zen theory, so I'm sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So how do we stay present? The first thing to recognize is that, try as we might, we really can only do one thing at one time. So we ought to do that thing wholeheartedly. Most of our time is spent in the past or the future, rather than the present moment. What we end up doing is passing through that moment on the way to somewhere else, and in doing so, we miss the moment. That's how life ends up passing us by. We do it to ourselves. Okay. Rehearsing, and that's all we're doing is rehearsing. The past is problematic because it's something that can't be changed. It's done. It's set in stone, immutable, and immovable. Certainly we can change our relationship to the past, but staying there is simply ruminative and, for some of us, badly destructive. I've been there.
Yeah, because you just beat yourself up over past decisions. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I can see that not being very good.
Yep.
All right. Anticipating the future is also problematic, even futile. Because no matter how much we'd like to convince ourselves otherwise, we can't really control the direction in which things will go. We can set an intention, true, but in the end, the universe has a way of deciding.
Well, sure, you find a fork in the road, you may choose which side you go, but you have no idea what that road in front of you looks like. One could be filled with potholes, the other could be absolutely smooth, and you look at the one that has potholes and you don't know it has them, and you're just like, oh, this one looks better, and you set down that path, It's just, yeah. That's why you can't stay in that, or you can't focus too much on that.
So staying present, then, means staying here, right here. And there are a few simple steps that can lead us to the experience of profound attention and a direct experience of the moment that we're in. All right. Okay. Number 1, take a breath. How much do we talk about breathing?
I know. I'll tell you, the other day I read an article that a woman was like, she's like, if you're trying to treat depression and anxiety on your own, the most important thing you can do is learn breathing. Learn to meditate and learn breathing. And I keep reading more and more and more how breathing exercises and meditation are being prescribed as treatments for anxiety and depression because the success rate is good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Something else that I found that I've been harassing my best friend with is wiggling your toes.
Yep.
It's amazing what wiggling your toes can do. If you're having an anxiety attack, you're having, whatever's going on, having trouble staying in the moment, start wiggling your toes because it's almost impossible for your mind to wander when you're wiggling your toes.
Unless you're in the ocean, then I don't recommend wiggling your toes because you might get mistaken for,
Yeah, little fishies or something.
Something a shark wants to eat.
Yes. And I will say there are plenty of cat videos out there with the song Wiggle. And, you'll lots of cat videos. So if you want to look, and they're really, really cute. There's one that just like wiggle, 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 wiggle. And it's a little kitten wiggling its butt. It's adorable. Anyways, I digress. So, take a breath. Breathe along with change is the only constant. And being present starts with the breath. Simply draw a deep breath and let it out through your nose. When we breathe through our mouth, it triggers a subtle anxiety response, which increases heart rate and redirects blood flow. That's why you rarely see elite runners and cyclists panting. And why... Whoop, screen went dark. Hold on.
I can keep reading if you want me to finish that.
Come back. Nope, there it is.
Okay.
That's why you rarely see elite runners and cyclists panting, and why one of my own martial arts instructors used to make us train for hours with a mouthful of water. That'd be interesting.
I've heard about football coaches doing that, making guys run with mouthfuls of water for that
Really?
reason. Yeah. So
to teach them how to breathe.
Teach you how to breathe right. Yep.
Nice.
It's so important, for athletes and stuff especially. Well, for everybody apparently.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
A slow release of breath through the nose has the opposite effect of mouth breathing, and it draws a relaxation response.
Plus, who wants to be a mouth breather,
I will say, I'm a big sigher.
Yeah.
And when asked about it, I always say I'm breathing with purpose.
Yeah.
Because, why are you sighing? No,
Yeah.
I'm just breathing with purpose. Because, I take deep breaths, and then I let it out slowly, and it sounds like a sigh, of course.
Right.
So maybe I need to re-examine that. Instead of doing the big breath out through the mouth, maybe I need to start focusing it more out through the nose.
Yep.
So this technique and intention is also taken in part from the Theravada Buddhist meditation tradition. Try it out. Take a breath, and when you exhale, what happens? Exactly nothing. In the Theravada tradition, the oldest of the Buddhist traditions, meditation practitioners are taught to focus on the out-breath because on the out-breath, nothing happens. Everything falls away for that simple span of time. A breath. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, next, what are you doing right now? Consider as a correspondence to that moment of suspended breath time. What are you doing right at that moment? For most of you, right now, you are reading. Are you just reading? Where are your thoughts, your emotions, your hands, your sense of time? You are reading. That's it. So just read. Not being present is easy. There are bills to pay and kids to pick up at school. There are doctor's appointments and reports to write, books to read, parents to resent, loved ones to miss, and the list goes on and on. With all that going on, past and future, it's no wonder the presence is so elusive. It's not, however, as elusive as you might believe. Be a witness. In becoming aware of what you are doing, exactly what you are doing, in any given moment, bear witness to it. Observe it, name it, stand away from it, all at once. The moment is now, 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 now. When we cling to a now, rather than simply bearing witness to it and letting it pass by, we become trapped in time as it passes. The great Zen teacher Takuan wrote in one of his essays on swordsmanship that the mind cannot come to rest on a thing. In this case, he meant an opponent or a technique or a stance, because then the mind itself becomes trapped in that thing, and we in turn become trapped by the trap. The mind must flow like the breath if we are to remain constantly and consistently present in the moment and not mired in the past or at the sufferance of anticipating the future. Oh, what do you think so far, Brian?
A lot of it makes sense. It's a lot of it has to do, like, really, I think the first and last tips are so on this are the best ones, but it, excuse me, it's very much, it's very much about being in that moment, like, just letting things, just letting them happen without, I kind of like the, don't get trapped on a now, because I mean, if you picture each one of those nows is a leaf blowing through the air. If you were on one of them, it would blow forward and it would go to a destination. Like that's you kind of worrying about the future. If you just let it go, and it's just, other leaves will blow past you. It's just you just are experiencing that rather than trying to control it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I almost consider it kind of like you trying to stand in one spot while the current is going all around you.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to stay in that one spot. You're not trying to push through to go against the current, but you're not trying to, let the current swipe you away. You're trying to stay just in that spot and just be aware of everything. As everything goes around you and passes you and all that stuff, you're aware of every moment that you're just there. So the next part they talk about is let the rest go. Much like bearing witness or engaging witness consciousness, as the wisdom teaching refers to it. All right, let's do that one again. Let the rest go. Much like bearing witness or engaging witness consciousness, as the wisdom teaching refer to it. Whatever is not there in that moment, let go. Be there, right then, that's all. That just sounds like a big old tongue twister.
Like if you're at the gym, don't worry about picking the kids up at 4 or 3 or whatever. It's like just do what you're doing and don't worry about what's next.
Right.
You can worry about that when the time is appropriate, kind of a thing. Yeah.
The concept of nirvana is often misconstrued as the experience of great peace and the attainment of bliss. That is the outcome of nirvana. Nirvana itself translates to something more like no holding or no clinging. It is the release that brings freedom, which affords that great peace and attainment of bliss. Travel light. What we do not need in that moment, do not take aboard. That may come in handy when I'm packing for my next trip. Come back to the breath. When the world of your thoughts begins again to intrude, simply come back to the breath. Inhale and release your exhale to unbind yourself from the shackles of the past and the anxieties of the future. The consistency of breath can relate to the constancy of presence for us if we choose to show up. The act of being present is, in a sense, a meditation without meditating. The stillness here, though, comes from an action: breathing, attending, witnessing, releasing, and breathing again. This simple cycle can be profound and change the way we experience our world. Okay. So breathing, we've talked about breathing a lot.
Yeah. And it's so important, and it is such a great reset. You know, like we've said before, you know, and my therapist told me that, like, if you feel anxiety or you know you're going to do something that will make you anxious, before you go to it, go through and breathe. You know, focus on your breath, focus on it coming in, going out, you know, like this talked about, you know, and then just start again. Like, you don't let yourself think about other things. It's, you know, breathing in, pulling in, you know, the breath, feel it go through your lungs, everything, you know, and then breathe back out, feel it going back up and out through your nose, and, you know, and again, this is part of, I can't remember if it's part of cognitive behavioral therapy, if there's a side kind of section of it, but I know sometimes what they do with people when they have, like, disassociation issues is they will, you know, tell you, put your foot on the ground. Like, do you feel, like, if there's carpet, do you feel the carpet, run your toes through the carpet, kind of a thing. As you're walking, take slow, deliberate steps. Feel the muscles in your legs working. And then, you know, put your hand on a wall. What does it feel like? Focus on, you know, like, each thing you do. Focus on every little action that you do. And it will re-ground you. And it also helps to eliminate the anxiety and the stress from what you're doing, you know?
Exactly.
So...
And then the next one, attending, which I think you're just kind of even talking about. Attending the moment, attending what's going on. Then witnessing, taking, you know, mental notes and witnessing what that moment is. Then releasing, because that moment's past, and start breathing again.
Yeah.
Simple cycle, very profound.
Yep.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. That's why I said it's, you know, a little more, it's not really new age, but because it's, you know, old stuff. But
right.
It's so amazing that what's happened for a lot of people is we've pushed ourselves, you know, because we got to do more, got to do this, got to do that, got to get, you know, and it's a constant go. To where now we're going back to old techniques to calm ourselves back down, to refocus, to be able to just experience life again. You know, like, we've pushed ourselves so far one way that we need to pull back the other way. You know, and we're always stimulating ourselves with coffees and 5-hour energy and you know, pop and, you know, whatever. And it's like now, you know, and again, we live in a world where there's a market for relaxation drinks, and I don't mean like liquor. I mean, like, chamomile tea is always been there, but now there's, like, water that you can drink that's got chamomile or whatever, and it's supposed to help you calm down before bed. You know, it's like, how many people do you know that are on sleeping medications? 10 years ago, you didn't hear and again, I know some of these drugs were developed, but it's like, you just hear about this so much more because people are constantly like, there's no, like, it's why, you know, as much as some people will knock Netflix in a lot of ways is one of the few things that gets us to stop, but then we obsess on the binging of Netflix, you know. But at least it's something where you know, we're not on the go. It's, hey, let's watch this. And you just, you know, zone for a little bit, basically.
Exactly. You just zone out, and pretty soon you find yourself watching the same movie you've watched 10,000 times and noticing maybe some things different.
Like, Portlandia did a great episode on Netflix with, they were like, just one more episode concept, you know? And they binge watch one TV series, they get done, and they're like, well, let's start this one. And then it's like, well, just one more. And it's just like years go by, basically, you know, because they just keep watching show after show after show. So, yeah.
Easy to do.
Actually, I don't think it was Netflix. I think they were using DVDs, but same idea, you know, just the binge watching.
Oh, it's so simple to do.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's why I said it's just so amazing to me how we have actively taken ourselves out of our own lives.
Yes, we have.
And even people without mental illness are doing this. Like, the people with mental illness have help being pushed out of your own lives. You know, like, I wrote a tweet the other day that depression is like the worst stunt, been my like awful stunt man for like 20 years, and it's the truth. It's like every time I'm going to do something in life, depression steps in, kind of a thing,
Yeah.
or anxiety steps in. It's one of the two, so it's like I said, somebody like me has help being pushed out of my life, and some people are just choosing to do this, and some of them aren't even realizing that they're choosing to do it, so these things these things can help it, pull people in. I think it's why you see so many people are signing up for meditation and yoga, and it's finding ways to recenter yourself,
Yeah, I really feel that as a society we've gone so far one way.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be snapping back the other.
Yeah.
We have to get more in touch with being in the moment, being grounded, staying in contact with the world around us.
It's like being a kid. You move out on your own, and for years and years, you weren't allowed to have all the all the cookies you want. Now you live on your own, and you're like, I'm gonna have all the cookies because I'm an adult now. I can. So you eat all the cookies, and then you're like, oh, I feel horrible. Why did I eat all the cookies? So next time you're like, maybe I'll just eat a few of the cookies, and it's like, it's so funny how sometimes we have to push ourselves to excess to fully understand our limits, Like,
absolutely.
Like
I think that's actually a big trend with the human nature.
Yeah. Because we do it with everything, how many people do you know that'll, oh man, I started watching this TV show on Netflix, and like, I watched all of it. Oh, I got no sleep. It's like, yeah, I learned I can only watch like 2 shows or 2 episodes a night or whatever, and or I can only do 2 shots of tequila, stuff like that.
Right.
We learn our limits, but a lot of times we have to, like I said, we have to take that kid mentality of, I'm going to eat all the candy. And now I feel terrible. Now I understand why Mom and Dad told me I shouldn't eat all the candy.
Right.
It's
like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Like this, I remember years ago seeing parents letting kids do program after program after program after school, and I'm like, they got homework? The kid's in school all day. They come home, they got to do an hour of homework. Then they've got to go to whatever sport or drama or whatever it is, or scouts or something like that, and it's like they basically are, and then you've got to fit dinner in there somewhere, and they really should have some time to play before bed, and it's like, a shower or whatever, a bath kind of probably fits in there. It's like you're trimming that time down to where these kids are doing this, and now these kids that I saw that happen to then, now they're adults, and that's all they know is that constant go, 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 because that's what we're taught,
Yeah.
So it's, the best thing you can do is take some of your time back somewhere. It's why for years I've advocated to people that, like when you eat lunch, never eat at your desk. Always go somewhere else and eat, because it changes the venue. It allows you to, better off yet, like if you're at work, leave the premises, even if it's go sit in your car instead of sitting at your desk, then you're not in that environment anymore. You can focus on you for a little bit of that time too. And like Angela's, talks about on their show, that way you can focus on your eating, enjoy each bite, enjoy the process of whatever you're having for lunch or whatever, maybe read while you're eating, something, that kind of a thing to again, recenter yourself for the rest of your day. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
because it's so important to just, break free from our normal everyday traditions and
well,
really
especially if they add stress to you,
Yeah. Try to do things a little differently, look at things a little differently, and really focus on the moment.
Well, you've talked about on this show plenty of times about how, and I have too, how we push ourselves too far, and then we snap back. We need our recovery time from pushing too much. And, I think it's important it's like, take time every day. If you can take some time every day, then you can maybe cut down on needing a whole day to recover, or needing a weekend, or like me, after doing podcasts and stuff, I needed the better part of a week. Like, spend some time doing breathing, even if it's on your way to work in the car. Like, you can't close your eyes or anything, but you can still focus on the breathing while you're driving a little bit, or while
Absolutely.
you're, even while you're sitting at your desk, whatever it is you're doing, you can try to find little ways, even if it's for a few minutes at a time. It's kind of like exercise, even if you can only get like 15 minutes of exercise in, it's still better than zero,
Yes.
And it's the same with this, is even giving yourself that reprieve of a couple minutes, like go into the bathroom and just focus on your breathing, like once in a while, a couple times a day, or whatever it needs to be, and I think it's so important for people to do that. And I think you're seeing more and more people that are doing it,
Yes.
I think a lot of people are realizing that they need it, and it's like, with as many people out there with mental health as there are issues as there are, it's so important. Like I said, hell, even before I go to therapy, I'm practicing my breathing techniques on the way to therapy.
Yep.
I'm going to a place where I can sit and I can talk, and we're working on strategies for how I can work on things, and I still have to calm myself down beforehand,
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it just, you just have to really focus on those moments, try not to look too far ahead, and try not to look too far in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Lion King said it the best. I love it. One of my favorite moments in the movie is between Rafiki and Simba. Rafiki's the monkey, for those of you who don't remember. He hits Simba on the head with a stick. And Simba replies, "Ow, geez, what was that for?" Rafiki, "It doesn't matter, it's in the past."
Yep.
Simba, "Yeah, but it still hurts." Rafiki, "Oh yes, the past can hurt. But the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it."
Yep. And
So,
that's the thing.
I think that's a great place to end.
Yeah, because in the past, all you do is living in the past. All you do is beat yourself up.
Yes.
Like, that's all you do. There's, you should learn. There's nothing wrong with a little reflection, but that's it. You take a look and go, okay, I probably should have done this and this different, maybe, and then move forward. Or just recall it when you were, when a similar situation arises. But other than that, if you can stay out of the past, you're probably better off.
Exactly. There's
Future
not
too.
a whole bunch to gain from it.
Yeah.
A little insight, absolutely. And personal growth, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Glean what you can.
Yeah.
But then move on.
Yep. That's
It's
it.
good
It's
to
like I
go.
said, this whole thing, it's like, it's always been hard for me to just live in the moment. It's not something I do well. I'm generally worrying about the future too much, and I've tried really hard to get rid of that, but it's very difficult, It's difficult because by our nature, we're kind of taught that, like, as an adult, if you don't have a job, you worry about money. That's just what adults do. Even with jobs, adults worry about money, so it's like, but that's always worrying about the future. Well, what if this happens? What if this? And that's where you start. Again, we go back to the distorted thinking. Would have, could have, should have. Those, you eliminate those from your brain when you can. When those thoughts come up, just like in the article today said, let those go. Those are things you cannot control. So let those go. Work towards goals, but, recognize what you actually can affect and what you can't. So.
Exactly.
That's all.
So, I think it's about time, right?
Yep. You got a win for the week?
My win for the week is I had a bad Thursday night before I left work.
Yeah.
I had a bad meeting, a pretty bad meeting. And I gave myself a couple hours, digest it, learn from it, and then I moved past it.
Right.
And I had an amazing weekend.
Good.
So that was my win, is I did
Yep.
not let it color my weekend. I processed it, and then I moved on.
Yeah.
So that was my
pretty good.
win. How about you? You got a win?
I can't really... The only thing I can think of is, finally throwing a blog back up because, well, two things. Actually, I can think of two things, and I actually forgot to mention this earlier. I recorded a thing for a project for Libsyn called Thanks Podcasting. And it's where various podcasters talk about what podcasting has meant to them, what it's done for their lives and whatnot. And I recorded a few-minute thing for it. If I'll put the link in the show notes, or you can find it. Like, I have it over because I posted it through Salty Language, basically. You can find it. Actually, I think it's in the Salty Language feed called Thanks Podcasting. Anyway, it was kind of nice to sit down and do that, but I put it off and put it off and put it off. And I looked at the time, and I'm like, okay, you have 2 hours. Like, you either do this or, you know, kind of a thing. It's like, make your mind up. Quit putting it off. Quit fighting it. Like, oh, man, I got to do that. And, you know, I went through the internal fight. And then finally I just sat down and did it. And when I got done with it, I was happy with it. You know, I ramble a bit, but that's what I do. And so I turned that in. Anyway, as of the last I know of, it might not be by the time people listen to this, but it was on the front page of the new and noteworthy section of iTunes also. But if you just go to wherever you get your podcast and just type in Thanks Podcasting, it should come up. So, you know, so I did that. So that was anytime I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, and even though it's a podcast thing, it's still outside my comfort zone because it's still putting myself out there. You know, so that was probably that, and like I said, posting a blog and talking with people about, you know, the Scott Weiland thing, you know, was really kind of cool how so many people kind of shared and whatnot. It was, you know, nice talking with other fans about it. But I got a decent amount of hits off of that blog, which made me feel good because that means a bunch of people were curious about it as well. So, you know.
Absolutely. No, that's pretty darn good big win.
Yeah.
So, well, if you want to continue the conversations with me, go ahead and reach out to me at Jen's Crazy Life on Twitter. Also, you can reach us at the Crazy Life Podcast.weebly.com is our website. The Crazy Life Podcast at Outlook.
Yep.
Sorry. Crazy Life Podcast at Outlook.com is where you can send emails. And you, Brian, how can they reach you?
They can also reach the show through the Crazy Life Pod on Twitter. And they can reach me on Twitter at Stunami. And again, you know, if you want to read that blog that I posted, there's a link. It's pinned on my Twitter page. Or if you can't find it, let me know and I'll shoot you the link to it. Forgot what I was going to say. Our intro song, well, actually, sorry, my other podcast, Salty Language, you can find on Twitter at salty_language, or at saltylanguage.com. If you want to listen to the show, just, again, you know, however you get your podcast, just type Salty Language. We're probably part of it. Our intro song was done by our pal Heno, and you can find him on Twitter at IdaHeno. And you can check out their podcast at Angela's Awesome Podcast. Again, you know, however you find podcasts, just type that in. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network and the Wicked Radio Network, which we keep forgetting to mention each week. That's probably the part each of the last few weeks when I'm like, there's something else I can't remember. That's probably
because we're wickedly awesome.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to use that for a sound drop.
Don't think so? I think that's the best.
They might. I don't know.
Point Blank or Point Break is been remade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted that. I don't know why they did it, but anyway.
All right, continue.
Yeah. The serious business stuff. We're not doctors or therapists or trained professionals in any way. We're just two people dealing with mental illnesses, and we're just sharing our experiences and hopefully some tips that may help you. If you do need help, please seek out medical attention. Go seek out a doctor or therapist or whatnot. If money is an issue, check your I believe it's like the Board of Mental Health in most areas or the Department of Human Services. You know, somewhere in that range, somebody will be able to point you in the right direction, I'm sure. There's a lot of programs out there to help people, or find a support group. There's a lot of those out there that are low cost or no cost for people. And then again, if you are thinking of something like suicide, first of all, please don't. Second of all, reach out to your support system, or call the suicide hotline, the suicide prevention hotline. Jeez, I can't think today. Or if it's dire, if you can, either call 911, tell them it's a mental emergency, or just have someone take you to a hospital, and they will help you. But again, please don't kill yourself. It's not worth it. I understand how dark it can get and how it seems like the answer, but it's just not. So,
no.
Please don't.
It is absolutely not the answer. And there's always a choice. I still have that challenge out to you folks. Tell me a situation where there is no choice, and I will point out the choices. Because there's always a choice that you can make. I may not like the options, but you can always choose. So, that being said, everybody go out there, claim your wins, shout them from the rooftop, and have a great week.
Remember to breathe.
Welcome to the Wicked Radio Network. Oh, yeah. Let's get this party started up in here. Whoop, whoop. Hey, this is Mark. You're listening to this show probably on your mobile device, whether it's iOS or Android or even Windows Mobile. Who has one of those? But anyway, you're probably listening whether it's iTunes or Stitcher or some other wonderful mobile app that brings this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. Yeah, but did you also know that you can find this show among several others in this category at the Tangent Bound Network? That's right, go visit tangentboundnetwork.com. Check it out, where you can always get the latest episode of this and other shows quite like it. Although, admittedly, there is no show quite like this one.